in a dirty world. Dirty, 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 dirty world. Talking clean in a dirty world.
Hello, everyone. We are now here live with you again. We are talking clean in a dirty world. And you know what? I don't know if you've been with us for all the rest of our episodes, but we're getting ready to show you another one. This is the month of February 2023. So let's bring on our panel. First of all, we've got Bobby Zagers. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
And of course, we've got Don Tracy. He's got his hat on today. Welcome, Don.
Good morning.
And last but not least is Javier.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here, as always.
Hey, you know what? The best thing is it's good to see that as we record this on a Monday morning, technology works and everybody's here. So let's jump right into it this morning, guys. Let's talk about one of the things I saw recently was this about what has happened after the pandemic and what do we think about things. And, you know, this was a kind of a survey that I saw done. Don't know if you guys took a chance to look at this, but it said, what was the most important thing you learned from the pandemic? So I just want to see what you would say. Answer one of those three. Come on, guys.
Well, you can only read one of them, or maybe two of them. But the first one, if we're going to address that one, Dave, is the most important thing. The most important thing you learned from the pandemic in regards to the supply chain issues. I think it was, and if you read to the end of that article, the gentleman who they're interviewing says it's the importance of the resiliency, and I'm pretty sure that was a big one. But innovation played a lot during this too, because we were bringing on products that we hadn't even. Usually, we would test in products. Usually, we would do a lot more due diligence on products than we did during the pandemic, because some of these things were coming out that were solving issues that needed to be addressed right away, and customers were saying, yeah, I'll take it. They hadn't even seen it. They weren't even looking at a demonstration. They just wanted it to start to address problems that they were having at their facilities. So I think it's kind of a combination of both, but I know we were bringing on new products every week as a sales team.
So Javier, from a contractor's viewpoint, which one of these three would you have identified?
Me personally, Dave, I like the need of increasing efficiency. And I think that's one of the most important key factors, because as this virus proved to be stubborn, very stubborn, and I'm sure they'll probably, hopefully, Lord willing, we would like to think not, but there'll probably be other viruses like it or even worse in the future, since, they never really ever go away. Efficiency is the biggest thing I took out of it, because, now with employee, like Bobby was talking about supply chain issues, but also with employee issues, meaning that you can't find as many people as you would want on a regular basis to work for you. In our industry, for example, in cleaning, as cleaning technicians, you have to work with what you got. So when working with what you got to increase the efficiency, as in proper training, that they have to be able to do more than they would normally would, but also do it correctly, and and try to cover more space than you would with a large team or a large group of people. So the efficiency factor, I think, is really big for us.
So see, I think that's kind of the thing. It depends on who you're asking and what is the reason. What is it that we learn the most of? You got a supplier versus a contractor. Don, let's go down here to the second one, if you will.
Well, I would just to interrupt you real quick. I would say we actually are agreeing on that, because what we were looking at were innovative products that increased efficiency. So it's kind of like that's what was going on, and those kind of things that you would have brought to the contractor, and they would have tested it out. I was just saying that innovation was happening quickly, because they needed to do what they needed to do fast, and we needed to help them. And so that kind of slow walk that we usually have in our business wasn't there during the pandemic.
Hey, that's why this is a discussion, folks. It's a round table of four guys. We're going to have a little something to talk about. However, there were plenty of disruptions around the supply chain. It says on here, how will you handle these? By being patient, being more adaptive and agile, making large purchases before there is no supply chain, Don.
Yeah, you're covering a lot of bases there with that. When you guys were discussing the other part of that, I was just looking up something. You hear it all your life. Necessity is the mother of invention, and I think having that pandemic made us be more inventing in our thinking, because we get kind of rote and just doing the same things over and over. I've been in this industry over 30 years, and we kind of do the same things over and over. And the old story of expecting different results. Well, that forced us to rethink everything we did, from supply chain to how we deliver, how we even do sales business. We used to have meetings in person. Now we do Zoom. It's just much more efficient. So a lot of that has evolved everything that we do, some for the better, some for not the, there's opinions on both sides of that. So I think as we wash forward, there'll be efficiencies that we can implement, and others that we find are not that efficient, and we'll throw them away and find something else. But when you have a dilemma like that, or a pandemic, or whatever that upsets the apple cart and the supply chain is disrupted, human nature is we get really creative, because we all have to survive. We all have to feed ourselves. And when you get back to basics, that's what we're doing. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to, make a thing. And our janitorial industry is trying to keep everything clean at the same time. And everybody went home. So it disrupted everything about how we do business. It was an interesting 2 years. It's still happening, because I still drive around and see empty buildings everywhere. And as Javier can probably attest, there's office space that used to be cleaned by contractors it's empty. So that changes their dynamic. Where's their customer base? Who do they go after?
So back to the question, though, which one of these three would you pick then as the most significant thing? Patience, agile, or we bought a whole lot of product?
I think being I like the one being more adaptive and agile, because being patient, if you're patient, you're going to lose. If you're patient, that usually means you're sitting still and waiting for something to change. You're not making change. You've got to be the change creator.
Don's not a patient guy.
I'm not. No, I'm a change agent. If something's static quo, I want it to change, because nothing is constant but change. If you're not changing or going forward, the change is actually happening to you. You're going backwards. Whatever it is, if you're not creating a change that takes you forward, you are absolutely going to go backwards, because there is no sitting still. The earth is still revolving and things are going around you, and you're going to go bye-bye.
So Javier, he mentioned you a couple times. So, I'm thinking agile is your thing too. But then again, if the supplier doesn't have a good stock, then you're in trouble too.
It's true. It's true. There has to be a good balance of everything. I mean, being agile for sure, but it's true. Everything has to work kind of in unison with each other, in order for us to be successful, because it's from the supplies and everything else. But I agree with Don, though. I think it's a very good point he made.
It's hard to pick a right answer, because in some cases, all three responses are right. Bobby?
Mm-hmm.
Well, which one are we talking about now? Number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the patient thing wouldn't have worked during the pandemic and the supply chain disruption. Squeaky wheel. You had to.
No, but I think what they're talking about is, did we learn that to now be that way? Is patience the thing we are now?
No. Well, we didn't do that when it happened, so we weren't going to do it now. And Don's correct. Adaptive and agile is the. Yeah. I mean, making a large purchase before a pandemic, that wasn't even really an option. Maybe it was for certain segments, but by the time that hit, unless you're have insight to what's about to happen above and beyond what our industry did, I don't think you're going to be making that large purchase like that and know what it is. So it's adaptive.
Okay, so let's move on to the third one. Which of the following do you think helped most B2B firms during the pandemic? Providing customers alternatives, high customer engagement, or past investments and planning for these supply chain disruptions?
Well, okay. I can tell you that high customer engagement was big. I mean, and alternatives to what they may have been trying to get in the past if they used a certain type of disinfectant, and not what the alternatives for that were. we were having company meetings at 8 a.m., 10:30 a.m., 3:30, and 5:30 every day in the beginning. And then from there, we were talking to our customer base. I know I was on the phone with them, if we weren't on the phone talking to new suppliers or talking to our fellow employees, we were on the phone talking to customers and giving them updates. And so it was just a very huge time to be very customer forward.
So that was what you did during the pandemic. How has that now changed what we do after?
Well, I don't think it has. I think what that question said was during and the supply chain part of it also.
Oh, no, during and after. So I think it's kind of a two-part.
Well,
has that changed?
We're still in a supply chain world issue. I mean, whether we think we are or not, we are. And so we're still dealing with that. And we have vendors that have slowed down from how they used to ship comparative to vendors with huge price increases in market segments that it's not equal, things like that. So, I mean, we're still dealing with that, and you have to explain all these things to customer bases and stay very engaged.
Don, you mentioned before that was one of the problems. You felt caught between the rock and the hard place.
Oh, because as a sales guy, we always want to satisfy our customers. We want to appease them, and they're looking for things. And the hardest thing during the pandemic was we had to keep explaining to people over and over. Literally every day, my wife even said, because she was sitting across the desk from me dealing with her. She's in the medical industry. She was dealing with her side of it. And she says, I feel like I could say all the answers that you're giving your customers, because I kept saying the same things over and over. It's not available. You're going to have to accept something as a substitute. Whatever we can get or find, we will get it for you. But that to this day is still happening in some aspects. A lot of manufacturers have shrunk their items that they offer. Where they used to have like machine manufacturers used to have 150 machines. Now they might make 100 machines, or even 50 machines. They've narrowed down their focus because they can't keep the inventories on board for all the parts. So everybody has rethought and did a redo on how they're doing business, from the manufacturers all the way to Javier's into the cleaning industry. Yeah. We've had to deal with that. Bobby deals with it all the time. I mean, he spends probably, I bet he spends 50% of his time dealing with manufacturers and supply chain issues. Would I be correct? Or close to it?
Part of it.
But Javier, then did you find that, and now because parts and stuff weren't available, were you now thinking about buying newer machines now because you had to rebuild and stuff because you couldn't get the parts, or has that changed for you?
Well, it really hasn't changed all that much. I mean, we ran into a few of those issues with that, but I mean, luckily we were very fortunate that we were able to work with our clients and of course everybody was informative of the situation of what was going on with the supply chain issues, and of course because of the pandemic and everything else, but we didn't have to stir away too much from what we had currently. So, I think a lot of other folks might have encountered that problem, but ourselves as a company, we were very fortunate about that. We were able to work with what we got, basically, in other words. So
okay, so let's jump to the fourth one that they had on this list, and it said, if we had another significant supply chain disruption, which would be the most critical? The ability to bounce back, the ability to bounce forward, or just a return to normal business the way it was?
Well, I could start with that one, Dave. I mean, for us, it's the ability to bounce back, because a lot of people, building service contractors like myself, were also affected. Like Don said, offices closed on a major level. We lost a lot of accounts. And then in the meanwhile, us as BSCs, we have payroll, we have employees, we have to have cash flow, we have to maintain our company. So with that said, with those issues were coming in, it would adversely, affect our flow, our pattern as the business would flow. So I think that's a major one for us on the building services contractor side.
Gentlemen?
So I'm big on bouncing forward. So if we're not growing, we're dying type thing. So I mean, you got to do all of it. You got to bounce back. You got to get your normal business back to normal, and you got to grow forward. So, yeah, you're taking a part of all those three things and trying to deal with that. I mean, once Javier gets bounced back, now he's got to figure out, since the buildings are closed, now what am I going to do? Right, I'm going to go find another segment of business. That's my forward type thing. So,
right.
I don't see anybody doing parking lot cleaning, man. Get you a big old parking lot machine and run around in it.
Well, I would actually, Don, I actually did a podcast with a gentleman, and him and I were talking about this not too long ago that you bring this up. He actually has been in the parking lot business, but the tools that he uses a big dustpan and a broom and trash can liners. He makes 6 figures and has put 3 kids through college. He said, I didn't have a supply chain problem. But what for him, he said, everybody was throwing all of their masks and all of their disposable stuff on the ground. He said, parking lot clean. He said, I'm just not thinking about parking lot cleaning with that big piece of equipment. So I think this goes back to what Javier said. Maybe parking lot clipping with a broom and a dustpan is a source of revenue now.
Sometimes simpler is better.
It's true. You have to think outside of the box. Like for ourselves, we ventured more into pressure washing now and pressure washing outdoor areas, outdoor parking lots and all that stuff. Sure, because you always have to have that extra thing or that extra service to maintain your revenues or and to provide.
I think what's interesting as you looked at this, now this was their version of what the best answers were. And folks, we don't want to go into all of this, but I think that what this shows you is, as we're discussing this here as a team this morning, whenever you see these articles come out, I think a good thing to do is, go through your company, pull up this article and have a discussion like we did this morning about it. You may learn some things about your operation, about your company that you might not have known. Now, I don't know if everybody here agrees with all of the answers that they gave here. So, yes, no.
I mean, it was pretty much not saying those are the right answers. That was Mr. Wilson's opinions of the right answers. So, I mean, I'm sure he's entitled to them and fine.
And I think that goes back to the point, Bobby, is I think everybody has a difference. And so the more you use an article like this, and as you saw, folks, this was on Clean Link. We all get these kind of things. But if you don't actually go into and have a discussion about them, you don't learn things about your operation. And as Bobby said, bouncing forward. Thanks for the discussion today, guys. Any final words before we close?
Yeah, I've got one tidbit for you, Dave. I think all what we've talked about here this morning was, looking forward, communication with customers, et cetera. The one thing I think that came out of this is, for me, a lot of my customers are calling me more reliably for things that they're looking for. It proved to them that we were able to do things for them that they hadn't thought about, and we were looking out for their best interests. So my customers now, I think the trust factor has jumped a few points in that aspect. So I think one of the pandemic outcroppings is that we have been able to build a stronger, tighter relationship. And I would recommend anybody who's listening to this, if you don't have a good relationship with your supply chain, you need to get one. Just calling up the big box guys or making an order online is not going to help you when you have a problem. That's what we do. We solve problems. So this was a major one I've never seen before. Nobody hopefully will never see it again, but we were there solving problems all day long. Like Bobby said, we were on the phone all day long for 2 years, solving people's problems, getting things done, making it happen, going all over the place, trying to find what we needed to solve those problems. That's what supply does when they're really good at it.
All right, sounds good. Way to go, Dave.
Don, I think Don put the final words to this part of our discussion today, guys. So if you're watching and not just listening, you can see there is the YouTube channel for Gym Supply. That's where you can subscribe and like and share. Get all of the past versions or episodes of Talking Clean in a Dirty World. Hey, Don, you got a little plaque up there on the back of your wall I want everybody to see. Can you grab that and show everybody?
So what I do all the time, sometimes not in a good way.
Dirt is our life when you're in the cleaning business, and we love it. Just, go to gymsupply.net. You can find all you need to. Stay tuned for another episode coming right up, and we'll get into a few more details, because remember, we're having some cleaning festivals here in Florida, so you want to stay tuned. Go to the website, take a look. Maybe you can come on down and enjoy some time with us here in Florida. Thanks, guys, for being on.
Thanks, Dave.
Clean in a dirty world. Talking